My uncle worked at an insane asylum from 1963 to 1982. Part 2. Story 3. The Rocker. One of the most unnerving crazies was one we called the Rocker. This was in 1965 during my first few years. Some mentally ill people tend to rock back and forth pretty often, especially after therapy. Some even rocked in the middle of their sleep. The Rocker, though, was called the Rocker because when he got 1 ounce of stress in his blood, he would freeze like a statue. In the kitchen one day, I was 2 years in and still feeling hopeful that the kitchen would help all these guys recover and be normal again, even the more insane ones like the Rocker. The Rocker started grabbing red pepper flakes and tossing them into random dishes. This was making the others kind of mad, and the stress level went up. I told the Rocker to stop and go sit down. That's when he literally froze. I've never seen anything living, freeze like that. All of a sudden, he started breathing again, but he was still frozen, his eyes stone cold staring at me. I wondered if he was conscious. The nurses came in and picked him up completely frozen and moved him to an area away from the others. I walked over to one and asked her what the hell just happened. They said the shock therapy had messed his nerves up so bad that when he was stressed, he acts like he's getting shocked. He tenses up, doesn't breathe, and passes out. But his nerves still fire, and he gets stuck until he wakes back up, and his nerves calm. This freaked me out. I asked the nurse how in the world you can deal with a person who every time he gets stressed, freezes up. They told me I couldn't tell him he was doing anything wrong. That went against everything in me. How are you going to teach an insane person how to recover if you baby them? I told him that I don't think he was cut out for the program if he couldn't follow the rules and couldn't handle being reprimanded. Looking back, I feel like I was such a dick. But I was new and had this idea that mentally ill could somehow be cured with a mixture of kindness and discipline. I then, like a fool, talked with his doctor about moving him to a different therapy. This is how the conversation went. Doctor, I think you need to switch his therapy. He freezes up whenever he gets stressed. You conditioned him. Isn't there something else we can do for him? The doctor was looking at a file. He didn't put it down. He just kept reading and said, Bill, do you even know why he is here? Do you know why we are still treating him? I paused and realized I wasn't a doctor. It kind of hit home. I was in this doctor's office telling him how to do his job and thinking he would listen to me. No, I'm sorry, he cut me off. This is a man who was, keyword was, a psychopath. He was able to look around a room, locate all exits and weapons, who was able to take him, who was able to hurt him, who he could kill first in a matter of seconds. So we conditioned him to freeze up during stress, and now he is cured. I understand if you don't want him in class, but we can't switch his therapy. I don't want him going back to his killer instincts. The therapy is working. I looked at him with wide eyes. It was like he knew it was wrong, but didn't want to admit it because the guy wasn't hurting anyone. With all due respect, he's not cured. He's a psychopath who seizes up every time he thinks the word kill. The doctor put down his folder. What do you want me to do, Bill? He killed, and killed, and killed. Finally, they caught him. He was sent here to be cured and monitored. I was getting so angry, but I didn't want to lose my job, and I wisely shut up. It's a success story, Bill. We were able to turn monsters away from killing. If we can perfect it without the seizing, we might put prisons out of business. Just relax. I was so furious at this point. Relax? Relax? How did he get off taking crazy people and numbing their minds to mush just to save them? The story's not over though. The next day, I asked to talk with the Rocker. I told the nurse I was going to apologize and let him know it wasn't him. I was angry at the situation. I was young and so naive when I went in and sat on his bed with him. He just looked over at me and his eyes began to twitch, a look of anger coming across his face. Listen, I know you're getting therapy. I just want you to know that I understand. You are mentally cognizant, and I just want to apologize for earlier. I looked at him in his eyes. His hands moved to my neck with lightning speed, and he seized his fingers around my neck. I could not breathe. I tried to yell, but I couldn't, so I just started gurgling in my own spit. I thought, my God, I'm going to die right here in this fucking cell. I saw in his eyes anger, hate. In came the nurses. I started seeing stars. I started fading. I saw them trying to move his arms, but they couldn't. And then, everything went black. I woke up laying in a hospital bed, a huge gash in my arm sewn up. I asked what had happened, and the nurse said the rocker couldn't physically let me go. So one of the nurses ran and grabbed a fire axe, and she cut his hands off. In the frantic rush, she also sliced through and got me in the arm. When I got back 2 weeks later, I found him walking the halls with no hands. When he saw me, he seized up. It was at that point they realized they couldn't let him be there anymore. He was too stressed out by seeing me, so they moved him to another asylum. That was the day I learned to never assume any psychopath is safe, even after he's had therapy. I saw in his eyes hate. I wasn't sure if it was for me or the system. Was that guy a monster? No, but he did kill people. It was our job to turn them back into people again. Shock therapy wasn't making him any less of a psychopath. It was making him a tame psychopath. I know it sounds like I'm saying he's an animal, but I'm not sure how else to put it. He killed without remorse. I don't know what to call that, but I still had hope for him. And I suppose I still do, just from a distance. The one thing I could never figure out is why the rocker put red pepper flakes in the food. I just have to wonder if he realized it was the only way he could cause pain to people without stressing himself out. Since he wouldn't talk, I probably will never know. I think if I was to go in his head, his thoughts would be, fuck this place, fuck these people, fuck this life. And that Vincent is a dangerous place to be in. Psychopaths are very different from people. Like the mumbler. They are so sick, we don't even know how to fix them. The mumbler can be talked to. He can be told not to listen to the voices. Even medicated, a psychopath just does without feeling or emotion. He would have killed me and not thought of why. He doesn't count as killers because he probably doesn't remember them, nor does he care. I wish I knew how to help those people. Story 4. The time I almost got fired. It was June 5th, 1974. A rainy summer by all accounts, or it seemed that way. Me and your aunt had just renewed our vows and fallen deeply in love again. It was a renewing of our faith in God that helped us come together. We both joined a local church and felt great about life. Things were going so well for us. We had just bought a 3-bedroom house, enough room for both our kids. The US wasn't doing well. In response to the energy crisis, a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit had been imposed, and daylight savings was extended. Global recession was causing an uprising in patients at the asylum, people wanting to get rid of their children, or people collapsing under the pressures of the world. Me and your aunt were doing well. The kids were in school, so your aunt got a part-time job working at the library, making a good wage. The two incomes were keeping us very well off in that dark time. But I felt always in darkness at the asylum, especially that year. In 1974, the head doctor of the autism unit made an announcement that he believed that diet was a proper way to respond to autism. He felt that what the kids ate made them antisocial and stunned them developmentally. He began to do what he called a test treatment. It was more a human experiment. He told me that some kids should eat all veggies. Some kids should eat all meat. Some kids would have no limit, and one would have to eat only water, a child named Ashley. Each child was given a pill. According to the doctor, it had some sort of medicine that was supposed to give each child exactly what they needed for nutrients. A vitamin, basically. Something was sketchy on all accounts with it. I didn't like it at all, but I had my orders. It was only supposed to last a week. 2.5 weeks later, I was seeing no change, except in weight. It wasn't my job to do anything but cook. The autistic kids were my kids. I loved them. They were different, and picked on for no reason. So what if they didn't talk much? They were brilliant. The doctor described them as unfeeling, childish recluses. The one who they starved, Ashley, in 2.5 weeks, was almost skin and bones. Her beautiful blue eyes always captivated me. For the last 2 weeks, I couldn't look at her. She cooked in class and grew weaker and weaker until she stopped feeling it all. She would sit in the corner, unresponsive to the nurse's commands to go. They one day asked me if I wanted her in the class anymore due to her behavior. That's when it hit me. I just want to interject here. At this point, my uncle literally broke down. He felt so guilty he hadn't done anything sooner. This really affected him. We had to stop for a bit, get a glass of water, and begin again. I marched over to the doctor's office and told him he needed to stop the experiment. He looked at me odd. "What experiment, Bill?" I looked at him with a dirty look and leaned onto his table. I was furious. "You know damn well what I mean. Your goddamn treatment is killing those kids." I was shaking with rage, and he could tell. "Have you noticed changes in them?" "I have. They're improving. I saw one the other day interacting with one of the other kids." My fist clenched. I thought right there and there I could have snapped his neck. I felt the insanity that many of the patients felt, but I stopped myself. Killing him wouldn't cure the kids. He had no understanding of what autism was like. I did. He may have read thousands of books on the subject, but I saw them every day. I ran out and looked for Ashley. I found her in her room. I looked around to see if any of the nurses were around to stop me. None. Then I opened the door and took her by the hand, telling her we were going on a little adventure. I stopped and smiled at her. She was only 13, and she looked at me with eyes so helpless. "Ashley, we're going to help you, okay? There will be yelling, but you and I both know you need help right now, okay?" I explained to her as best I could. She nodded slowly. My heart broke, but I had no time for tears. I pulled her with me all the way to the doctor's office. He stared at me. "What now?" he demanded, seeing me. I pulled Ashley in front of me, held her bony arm up and yelled, "Is this what you call treatment?" Ashley began to cry. She choked a bit, tears rolling down her face. "Oh, look, emotion. I guess it is working, doctor. Won't be working for long, though, because if she doesn't get food, she's going to fucking die." I slammed my hands on the table and looked at him square in the eyes. His eyes were so wide I thought he was going to fire me right then and there. I didn't care, though. Ashley's life was important. Then the doctor began to stutter. Now, Bill, the experiment is going to be over tonight, tomorrow. We will return the kids to their normal diet." I looked at him and leaned in closer. "Feed her, now," I said between clenched teeth. I'm sure my face was red. Nurses broke in at this time, seeing what was going on and seeing Ashley crying. They went in to console her. They thought I was saying to take her out of my class. The doctor held his hand up and relented. Fine. Nurses, get her a cup of chicken broth." I felt better and said, "Thank you," holding my hands up, and left the room. I was promptly taken to the head doctor's office and told not to mess with the treatments. I told him Ashley was an exception, and if I ever saw a patient that was withering away or dying, I would help them if I could. The head doctor agreed that in this case, it could be forgiven, but to be careful how I intervene. For Ashley, however, it was too late. She never recovered, mostly because they never gave her what she needed. She died a week after the treatment ended for her. The doctor in charge of her was never charged for her death, never even reprimanded. They put her body in the morgue. Her family had abandoned her, so I told the mortician I would purchase a spot for her in the graveyard. I had a small ceremony with a few of the nurses and my colleagues who cared as I did. I don't think I have ever sobbed so much over a patient. Ashley was a beautiful little girl. She never deserved this. She had so much hope. She was doing so well before. She would smile and laugh during class. She was interacting with others she trusted. Her anxiety was down since she came in. She was learning to live in the big world alongside her autism. I told the head doctor that I should be consulted about the students' well-being, as I spent every day with them. I told them the nurses should too. They didn't listen. Food treatments were regulated. You could not starve a patient, and a nutritionalist was put on staff that needed to be checked before the treatment to see if they could withstand the treatment. I will never forget Ashley. Autistic kids are misunderstood. They need love and compassion. Just because they're silent doesn't mean they don't feel. When they know you, they open up, and you can help them through tough situations. She should have never been in that asylum. She should have been in a loving family, gone to school, and grown up to be a successful person. Sure, some of them can't speak, but they still feel as well as you or I.